Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans in their Week 16 matchup played December 27th, 2015 as these AFC South division rivals went at it, and the Texans were looking to clinch the division. Of course, they would need the Colts to lose their game to Miami at the same time, but they would look to do their part in this game. And the Titans, of course, their season had been long since over. But in this game, we're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. And to start things off in the first quarter, less than 2 minutes into this game, the defense scored for the Texans. Quentin Demps, a 33-yard fumble return for the touchdown. Nick Novak added the extra point, and it was 7-0 Houston over Tennessee. Then with a little over 3 minutes still left in the first quarter, Nick Novak hit a 22-yard field goal to make it 10-0 Texans over the Titans. And that was the score after one. And then with about 2.5 minutes still left in the first half, Brandon Weeden scored on a 7-yard touchdown run, and with the extra point by Novak, it was 17-0 Texans over the Titans. That would be the score at halftime, but the Texans weren't done quite yet as they kept on rolling, scoring unanswered points into the third quarter when DeAndre Hopkins caught a 15-yard touchdown pass from Brandon Weeden. With 11.5 still left in the third, Novak added the extra point, and that made it 24-0. And then with about 6 minutes still left in the third, Weeden hit Nate Washington for a 13-yard touchdown. And with the extra point by Novak, it was 31-0. And then with less than a minute left in the third still, Novak hit a 36-yard field goal, and that made it 34-0 as the Texans opened this game with 34 straight points. And the Tennessee Titans would not score until with about 90 seconds left to play in the game. Zach Mettenberger hit Trey McBride for a 1-yard touchdown. They went for 2. They failed. And the final score would be Houston 34, Tennessee 6. And there was some turnovers in this game. The Titans actually had a forced fumble on Weeden earlier on in the game, but they wouldn't be able to convert that and turn it into any points, whereas the Texans defense, they scored, with that defensive touchdown to open things up. And then, of course, they got an interception later on in the third, which would lead to the touchdown by Washington. And then a fumble by Tennessee later on in the third would not result in any points, but the Tennessee Titans just got rolled over. The Houston Texans win very impressively on the road against their division rivals. The Colts beat the Dolphins, so the Texans do not clinch the division just yet, but they still keep a 1-game lead over the Colts as the Texans now, with the win, are 8-7 on the season at this point with 1 game left to play, and that will be at home. They're 4-4 on the road this year. They're 500 away from Houston. And Tennessee is 1-7 at home. Their final home game of the year. They're 3-12 at this point on the season. So the Texans handling business, and Brandon Weeden 15-24, 200 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. And Alfred Blue, 15 carries for 45 yards. Blue also had 1 catch for 5 yards, giving him 50 total yards. Polk had 11 carries for 38 yards on the day. And Weeden, of course, had that rushing touchdown, giving him 3 total touchdowns. And DeAndre Hopkins, 7 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. Nate Washington, 3 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown. And for the Titans, Zach Mettenberger was 27-51, 234 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The leading rusher for Tennessee was Cobb with 7 carries for just 18 yards. So Texans were really shutting down that running game. And the leading receiver for Tennessee, he had Douglas 6 catches for 79 yards, and Delaney Walker, the tight end, 9 catches, but just for 59 yards. We look at the kickers in this game, and Nick Novak was perfect, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 4 for 4 on the extra points, and no kicks attempted by Tennessee. No field goals or extra points. Is their one touchdown that they got with a minute and a half left. They went for 2. But for Tennessee on defense, Tavai had a sack and a forced fumble. And for the Texans, Jackson had a forced fumble. Pleasant had an interception. J.J. Watt had a sack and a forced fumble as well. We look at the team stats: 19 first downs for Houston, 13 first downs for Tennessee. And on third down, the Texans, 7 of 16, 43% conversion rate. And Tennessee, 4 for 16, just 25% on third down. They went for it once on fourth, and they did convert. We look at total net yards: 330 for Houston, 257 for Tennessee. And on the ground, the Texans really dominated, 121 yards netted on the ground. Not a lot per rushing play, but they stayed committed to the run. Of course, that big lead, they were able to do so. But just 30 yards netted on the ground by Tennessee. So more than 4 times as many yards netted by the Texans. And then through the air, Tennessee netted 227. Mettenberger was sacked once for a loss of 7 yards. And for the Texans, they netted 202 as Weeden was sacked once for a loss of 5 yards. Look at the penalties in this game. 4 penalties for each team. 43 penalty yards against the Titans. 28 penalty yards against the Texans. Houston had 1 fumble, which they lost. Tennessee fumbled 3 times, losing all 3. When we look at the red zone, 3 for 5 for Houston, 60%. 1 for 2 for Tennessee, just 50%. The time of possession, 36 minutes, 13 seconds for Houston, just 23 minutes, 47 seconds for Tennessee. So Houston coming up with a big win on the road. And this is the way, you would expect Houston to play and expect them to win. But it's always easier said than done. But they went out there and they did it. They showed and proved, getting a big, huge, dominant win against Tennessee. And this is the type of wins you want to have as you're playing towards the playoffs, putting that push in December to try to make it to January. And they are in the driver's seat. They control their own destiny. So next week in Week 17, if they can win, they are in or tie. And if the Colts lose or tie, then Houston would be in as well. So they control their own destiny. And they did they took a big step towards the postseason with this win. And they did it in dominant fashion. And the Dallas Cowboys can be wondering, hey, why wasn't Brandon Weeden playing like this for us? Is Brandon Weeden has just gone to Southeast Texas and revitalized himself there with the Texans. He's got them winning, and he looked pretty impressive. Not big numbers, but the 2 touchdowns and then the 1 rushing touchdown, 3 total touchdowns on the day. Definitely impressive performance by Weeden. And he did have that fumble, but no interceptions. And of course, the Houston Texans defense just playing dominant on that side of the ball, just shutting things down. Of course, they gave the Texans the early lead there, but they kept on putting the pressure on Mettenberger, and they were shutting down the run, and they were also forcing those turnovers. They ended up forcing 4 turnovers in the game. So the Texans doing a really good job on both sides of the ball. Of course, winning the battle in the trenches up front, looking very impressive. So it'll be interesting to see how things shape up next week. But it definitely looks good for Houston that they have a very good shot. They definitely have the inside track at taking the South. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to reach your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great week and are having a great weekend and enjoying all the sports.